it was all just notebook and pen and paper,
Oh, yeah.
and that worked, right? But I had a pretty full notebook of clients and of
Trying to keep it all
quotes
straight
and all this, numbers. Like that's where all my data was, and I lost that notebook.
Oh, man.
I just went into panic mode because
All right, welcome everyone to the 21st episode of the American Dream podcast. We have Leif with Sawdust Savage here today with us. Just go ahead and jump right in and tell your story about how you got into the tree work and business and all that.
Yeah, so I grew up in rural Minnesota, and my parents burned a lot of firewood, and so as a kid, like I have very fond memories about going out into the woods, and my dad would take like a whole week or two off of work, and we'd go out and we'd just spend that time in the woods and cut firewood and fell trees and all that fun stuff. So that I think kind of sparked my passion for tree work.
Sure.
That I ended up going to school for kind of several different things. I started out going to college for music composition, which I really love music, but
that's a cutthroat business.
Well, it's cutthroat. And it's like, the career fields around here in music is like you could be a music teacher, which I had no desire to do,
sure,
or like, worship pastor at a church. And again, I just didn't really feel led to do that. So
sure.
I was paying for school by turning wrenches. So I was like, oh, I'm pretty good at this.
Sure.
So 3 years in, I left 4-year school and went to a trade school for auto diesel.
Sure.
And then before I graduated there, I had a job offer out in Oregon to work for a big equipment company, and went out and worked for them. But,
Out in Oregon, huh?
Yeah.
Out in Oregon, yep.
What do you work on out in Oregon?
John Deere equipment.
John Deere.
Yeah,
sure.
So then we lived out there for about 5 years, and again we moved into this rural place that had two wood heat sources because it was so poorly insulated.
Sure.
And so, that was different though because we were out in the mountains, and so get to go out in the mountains, and for $5 you could buy a firewood permit and go out in the state land and cut firewood. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how did you go from transitioning from being a mechanic to, running your own business? Obviously that had to be a pretty big jump, and, how'd you know the right time was now?
It was a big jump, and it was honestly pretty nerve-wracking. So I was mechanicking full time, and then, helping friends with trees and stuff like that. Then that kind of turned into, I think I could make a business out of this, even if it's just a side gig. So got licensed and insured and started doing tree work part-time.
Yep.
And eventually it just kept picking up, and I got to the point where I couldn't sustain both. I was every weekend cutting trees, weeknights cutting trees, and
got to the point it was going to affect both your day job and your side job.
Correct. So I realized that it wasn't sustainable to do that anymore. So I decided I had to make a transition one way or the other.
Sure.
So I went with tree work because I've just always wanted to own my own business, to be an entrepreneur, and this seemed like a good avenue to do that.
Sure.
What, so when you were working, because you were working for SEMA at that time, right?
Yep.
Before you made the transition, was there things that you learned at SEMA that either that taught you that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, like things that you saw that you do differently, or was it just kind of that pure passion for tree work that you just felt that was the way you wanted to go?
I actually looked at like several different business ventures before going into tree work. It was more the drive to have my own business.
Sure.
And with SEMA, the cool thing was, I was a field service mechanic, so out interacting with people, and I loved being able to solve problems.
Sure.
I loved being able to go out. Somebody's got a $750,000 piece of equipment that's broke down, and their livelihood's on the line, and being able to go out there and fix that and get them going again and solve that problem for them. So being out with the customers, interacting with them, I realized, hey, I'm good at this. I like that interaction with people. I like being able to help them. And so, I think I could funnel that into my own business.
Sure.
So how long have you been in business now, I guess? Has it been
This will be like 2.5 years now.
2.5 years?
Yeah.
And did you originally start all that when you were over in Oregon, or did you kind of like jumpstart all that when you moved back this way?
Jump started it all when I moved back this way. Yeah.
Sure. Jumping into a business like that, did you start out small, or did you kind of go all out and buy a bunch of equipment, or what did the startup look like?
I started out pretty small. We're still pretty conservative as far as some of the equipment and investment stuff, but basically I started out with like a trailer and a pickup, and
Yep.
My dad's got a skid loader that I was borrowing to move big logs and stuff. Bought a bunch of rigging gear and just kind of the basic stuff.
Yep.
And then, quickly realized, okay, if I'm going to do this to any scale, I've got to have the equipment to make that possible.
Sure.
So, as we've been doing more work, been adding more equipment and trying to keep our debt load low, but,
Yep.
still have the equipment that we need to.
I see a lot of people make mistakes, starting out and keeping your overhead down at the very early stages can be really important. So, has it been hard to kind of be conservative like that, or
It has.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you see everybody, they got brand new, 2 brand new trucks and
Yep.
they got, brand new skid loader, $500,000 grapple truck and all this stuff. And they've been in business the same amount of time. And it's like,
Sure.
it would be nice to have all that, right? I mean,
Yep.
it really puts forth a nice professional image.
Yep.
However, at the end of the day, if your job slowed down and your revenue slows down, then you're in trouble.
The payments don't stop.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Harder to get food on the table when you got big overhead.
Yeah. So what we found is that we've been able to grow really rapidly by kind of making conservative steps in the right direction.
Sure.
And that's put us a lot closer to our goal without as much risk, I guess.
What is that goal you mentioned? Is there a big, obviously success is part of it. Is there something that ties back to the family side of things as well?
Yeah. So the other main reason I made the transition is the agriculture industry is so busy all the time. There's harvest and planting, which are working 80 hours a week.
Yep. Can't keep up.
Correct. There's on call and all kinds of stuff. And then it used to be that the summer and the winter was a little more laid back, but as farms have gotten more corporate and a lot of the dealerships have become more corporate, there was this drive for consistent productivity, which I get, right?
Yep.
But that really hampered on the work-life balance.
Sure. Yep.
And so I got to a point where I was working so much that it was impacting my family really negatively.
Yep.
And things started to come apart at the seams, and I was like, okay, we got to do something
Yep.
different. So that also helped kind of make that decision for moving forward with the business.
Sure. Yep.
And as you started your business, obviously those are harder times. How have you tried to balance that out, in kind of continuing to grow and continuing to make the ends meet? Has there been something that you've used to balance that out, or any structures or processes that you've put in place?
Yeah, I mean, it's been difficult, honestly, because when you're starting a business, you don't have 20 employees to handle all the things, so you're you're doing all the stuff,
Yep.
right? The marketing, you're doing the jobs, you're doing the phone calls,
Yep.
all of it. So that balance is been difficult, but a big thing for me is trying not to work on weekends, because
Sure.
before it was during the busy season, we were working a lot of weekends, and then throughout the year, weekends mixed in here and there, and
Sure.
just trying to reclaim some of that time with the family and
Yep.
be more intentional when I'm there.
Sure. And how have you put processes in your business now to help kind of streamline some things? I know we've had conversations, whether it's marketing, CRM, stuff like that. How have you implemented those?
Yeah, so CRM's been a big one for us when I started. It was all just notebook and pen and paper, and that worked, right? But the turning point for me wasn't that long in. I had a pretty full notebook of clients and of
Trying to keep it all
quotes
straight
and all this numbers. Like that's where all my data was, and I lost that notebook.
Oh man,
I just went into panic mode because like I didn't have anybody's phone numbers, I didn't have their quotes anymore, and so it was like, okay, we need to move into the digital realm. To make
Did you
sure
leave it in a
stuff's
tree?
backed up. No, it wasn't in a tree. Nope. So I ended up finding the notebook, which was good, able to reclaim that data, but I started shopping around for CRMs like the next day. And we ended up going with Jobber, which is a CRM tailored to the green space. A lot of landscapers and tree companies use it. And that's been a huge for reclaiming time, streamlining processes. And
is it all digital, like sign? You send the estimate to them, email,
correct.
sign,
Yep,
payments.
it's all signed. We got our contract in there. Deposits are all on there. We can take payments that way.
You have to go drive around picking up a check here or there, and just all that extra time that it saves.
So that's just been a huge game changer for us. And I work with another guy, Zach, and he helps out quite a bit. He's another contractor. And we he's got access to Jobber as well, so he knows where to go when we set up a job that he's working on. We just put it in there, and he knows where to go, what time to be there, all that stuff, and
helps with that communication, so they're not just reaching out every time to call or ask questions.
Or cutting the wrong tree down.
Cutting the wrong tree down.
Exactly. Well, that's been another big thing is they've got like a place for forms, and in the tree industry, having like a pre-job site checklist is really imperative because I mean, it does happen. People cut the wrong trees down, right? And trees are expensive. To replace a mature tree would cost an insane amount of money. So, we have this checklist we go through before every job, and it's, are there overhead utilities? Are there, flying insects in the trees? Because bees in trees are not good.
I can't imagine.
All that stuff. Are we cutting the right tree? Or are we at the right house? Or just going through all those basic things that a guy would think would be common sense, but laying out that process so it's really foolproof.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's important, especially as you continue to get employees and just having those notes when you're meeting with the homeowners. I think that's a pretty big differentiator when you have that kind of detail in there about everything on the jobs. You show up and it's pretty seamless, and the process is very, very clean.
Correct.
On the day they're getting the tree removed. So.
And on the backside, with the signed contract, it just adds so much clarity. We had an instance where a customer called us 7 months after we took his trees down and was pretty upset that we hadn't met our obligation as far as he was concerned with what we said we were going to do. And I was like, I don't even remember what
that's every entrepreneur's like worst nightmare right there.
Correct. So I was able to look back through a contract, and the thing that he was upset about was actually something we went above and beyond and did. It wasn't even part of the contracted price. It was just like, hey, we're willing to help you out. Go the extra mile. And so I was just able to have a candid conversation with him and say, we want to provide great service. Here's what you and I agreed on as far as price, and this was us going above and beyond. And that's the above and beyond is what you have an issue with. So how can we help resolve this? And he was like, well, I guess you can't. I was like, well, I want you to be happy. I want you to have a great experience. That's what we strive for is, 100% customer satisfaction. But I also can't do free work and and then come back and do more free work, you know,
warranty free work.
Correct.
Yeah. I think that's a huge piece that a lot of people miss the boat on. Either A, they just don't want to call back and deal with, that issue, but more so just having that information, because you do get so caught up, and there's a lot of projects. You've cut a lot of trees in that 7 months time.
Correct. And just having
those.
that clarity built into our processes 100%. Has been huge.
Yep. And just having that, you can actually have a conversation with a homeowner, an actual, legit conversation that isn't, well, I remember you told me this, or trying to find your notebook and going back on that. So
the professionalism aspect of it as 100%. Well. We, just the other day we went to a job and I was doing an estimate, do it all on the CRM, filled it out on site, texted it to her right then and there, and she opened it up and she's like, you literally have every tree detailed, the cost, what you're doing. She's like, I was not expecting this, and that just sets you apart from competitors a lot of times.
The one line item lump sum,
correct,
4 trees, and it's $10,000. Don't really know what you're getting, but you're getting 4 trees, and
correct.
You don't know if it's all the things. So I think that's very important to have that clarity and line item pricing. We likewise in my industry, we do the very similar, and people love to see all those broke down per item, and then especially if people want to do some things on their own, like, no, I'll take care of maybe that's hauling or different things on your end. They can have some of those line items and see how much those cost.
And it just builds a lot of confidence. Like when I first started, we got a lot of, you guys licensed and insured, a lot of that. Yeah. Now we get a lot less of that. Obviously we are, but
as that professionalism,
really puts people's minds at ease when they're doing business with you.
Yeah. Especially when they're high ticket items, when they're spending, $5,000 to $10,000, they like to see a little bit of breakdown of what all the costs are. And it just adds that level of transparency that, these are the things that cost money to do. It's just not one lump sum item. And, again, they just feel, I think, a little bit more at ease for some of those conversations.
Yeah.
So. Aside from the CRM, has there been one thing that really stands out that's kind of led to some of the success you've had?
I would say just consistency with how we treat people, how we, handle interactions with customers, the level of service. When I first got into it, I had a guy mentoring me from another tree service, and he said, the biggest thing is your cleanup at the end of the job. That's what's gonna
set you apart.
That's what's gonna set you apart, because that's the suck part of tree service, right? Like, it's easy to put them on the ground. It's easy to run the branches through a chipper, but to sit there with a rake and a leaf blower for an hour
Clean it
and
all
get all the sticks out of the yard.
After you've already worked your butt off and sweated.
Correct. Correct. But that, when the customer walks outside and it's just like their tree just evaporated,
disappeared,
there's not a lot of traces. Those are the things that really, really set you apart. And so I would say, the consistency in that has really been huge for us.
Yeah. You mentioned you had a mentor, or have a mentor. What's that been like, and how'd you come across one of those?
So that was just like a 1-year deal. I was on YouTube one day, and this guy had this YouTube video, and as I was scrolling, I love tree videos. I mean, I love tree work, so I watch tree videos.
Makes sense.
There's a lot of great guys doing super cool stuff on there.
Sure.
And this guy came across, and he's basically like, I've been doing this for 40 years. I want to help people get into it. So if you're interested in like a mentorship partner, like, here's my contact info, reach out. So I was like, it seems kind of scammy.
A little fishy.
But I'm like, I'll give it a try. So I reached out, and he's like, I love to help people. He said, I charged, I think it was $200 for a year.
Oh my,
jeez, mentorship. And at the time I was like, $200, I was just starting. I'm like, that's a lot of money, but
that's gas money and everything at the beginning.
Yeah. So I'm like, I think it'd be worth it. And it wasn't like a long-term super invested thing, but he went over like insurance and hiring people and
the nitty-gritty of business.
Just some of the stuff that like you just don't know. So that was super helpful.
Sounds like he saved you more than $200 in mistakes and learning the hard way.
For sure.
$200. That's a heck of a find.
So so then we as kind of years have progressed, we've made some really great relationships in the tree community in Minnesota. So we've got there's a guy named Eric Raven, and he's got Renaissance Tree Care in Rochester.
Sure.
And he's been in the tree industry for a very long time and is very passionate about passing on that information to the next generation, because there's several different types of tree people. There's the kind of people that are just in it for the money, and they're just in it to hack down trees.
Sure.
Those are the kind of people that top trees, which is where somebody goes, oh, I want my tree shorter. And so they literally cut the top 10 feet off.
Yep.
Yeah. In Rochester, like I will lose my tree care license if I do that.
Oh man.
Really?
Just because it's bad industry practice, right?
Oh.
Sure.
It creates weak branch attachments. It's just not good for the tree, and long term, it's bad for the customer.
Sure.
But there are two different types of tree people: the type that just are out there to hack trees down, and the type of people that want to preserve trees. They want to really see a legacy for these trees.
Sure.
Sustain the ecosystem of a tree and all the things.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty crazy videos of, talk a little bit about, bolting and cabling a tree together. I never even knew that was a thing. Yeah. If I see a split tree, I'm like, no, it's done. I'm out.
Straight up performing,
but
performing surgery
things like
on
that
these.
is,
Correct.
like literally surgery on some of these trees. That just blows my mind.
Yeah. We recently did one for a property management company. They were going to take this tree out, and then they got looking at it, and they're like, it provides a lot of shade to the backyard. I'm like, well, we got options. Like, we can do a weight reduction. We can take out a ton of weight out of the end of the branches to help relieve some of the stress on some of these far leaning branches, and then we can put a cable in to help kind of support it as Mother Nature hurls its worst at it.
Yep. Where do you learn some of those practices? Are there schools out there? Are there classes? Or, how do you invest in some of those things for you and Zach?
Our industry has got some really great materials on basic, like practices for that kind of thing. There's a lot of books out there and videos on that kind of thing. And then, like I was saying, this guy, Eric Raven, he's now actually put together a arborist training center in Rochester.
Oh, really?
So like his passion is, like I said, preserving that high quality arborist and passing that on to the next generation.
Like a true craft of an arborist.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
just a man in a chainsaw and they're cutting trees down.
Exactly. So
that's awesome.
He's putting on classes that are, we just took an electrical hazards class there. Cabling and bracing, basic climbing, all that kind of stuff. So there's just a bunch of great resources out there.
Seems like there's a whole nother level of passion in the arborist. No, I forgot the word. How do you say that?
Arborist.
Arborist. There we go.
Yeah.
Seems like there's a whole nother passion in the arborist field and industry that I ever knew existed. Does that get confused, or do the customers get confused with that side versus the people that are going out there and just topping trees? And is there kind of a gray area with being able to provide that level of service that you do versus some of those other guys that come in?
Yeah, and we try to clarify that we're in this to improve their trees. Sure. Not just remove them or hack off a whole bunch of branches to try to make them feel better. Yep. Because another thing is, a lot of people will go to do an estimate and they're like, I got this branch hanging over my house. Well, it's like a 15-inch diameter branch. Yep. If we cut that off of the trunk, it will never compartmentalize that wound. Sure. So then it'll get decay down into the base of the tree, and we're actually doing a disservice. So, we try to explain things like that. Like, hey, you would be money ahead to just do a tip reduction, remove a bunch of weight off that branch, and then potentially install a cable.
I feel like having the knowledge like that going in, that sets you way farther apart than some of those other guys that come in. Do you see a lot of feedback from the customers, because they probably assume that you just got to go ahead and take the whole thing down or take those branches off?
Correct. And I would say 85-90% of people heed those recommendations. They're like, oh, we had no idea. We just thought, you cut the branch off and it tree does its thing. Yeah.
That's what I do. Yeah. That's what I do.
Yeah, I'm in that 90% too.
Exactly. So, being able to articulate that to people and see them, make good choices about their trees. And there's still the 10% that's like, nope,
whatever.
I know better.
or I had one guy who did the estimate. He's like, I'm 80 years old. I'm not gonna live long enough to see the repercussions. Like,
Okay.
Cut the branch off.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we talked a little bit about what differentiates yourself in the industry. What have you seen as you've, in the 2.5 years that you've been in business? How have you, set yourself up to continue to grow? And then, furthermore, how big do you want to get? Obviously, you have Zach with you now. Are there some aspirations that you want to get to, or, level that you want to get to, or what's too big and what's too small?
Yeah, I mean, as far as growth wise, the goal eventually is for me not to be doing all the work myself.
Sure.
Like to take more of a management role, more of a
Business owner.
still a
owner,
hands-on
yeah.
approach, but
Absolutely.
there are a lot of business owners that do everything, and they do that through their whole career. But what you're just an employee for yourself is
Yep.
basically the
I think you suffocate the
Business.
business too by
Correct.
having that role of the do it all.
correct. And I think a lot of people have a hard time either taking the next step, or they have a hard time relinquishing control.
Yeah. Separation.
You have
anxiety.
to have a good enough team
Yep.
that you can trust.
Oh, yeah.
These people are going to go out and do the quality of work that
Yep.
that I set the standard on.
What's your brand? You got one shot at that, and you're going to spend
Correct.
a lot of time building that brand, and you got to make sure that, they're representing it for every action they do. So.
Yeah. So obviously the goal is to grow to that.
Sure.
Beyond that, how many crews we have,
Time
see
will
what the
tell.
good Lord has to say. But
Yep.
yeah, I would, at some point there's a lot of mechanized ways of removing trees. A lot of tools like a Merlot is a specific brand of, it's like it's kind of like a telehandler, but
Sure.
it's got a grapple saw on the end.
Gotcha.
And so,
Grab that thing and
yeah, so it's got like 100-foot reach, and so you reach
geez.
out, grab a large limb, cut it off with a grapple saw, and
Put it
then
right in the chipper.
pull it out, or a
Right
big
on a
grapple
truck.
truck, and just stuff it in the truck, and
Away you go.
you
Yeah.
can take a 5-hour removal and turn it into a 1-hour removal. And
Sure.
so I see a lot of advantages to
Along
the
with
mechanized
safety and
side.
all the
Correct,
things. I
safety
mean-
and all that. So the goal would be to probably move in a direction
Sure.
like that, but I still enjoy the climbing aspect. I'm a big guy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? But I still like climbing trees.
Sure.
So, and I think there's a place for that.
Mm-hmm.
The mechanical side of things can't reach every tree, right?
Yep.
You're not going to be able to do it all, but I think the mechanized side has a lot of advantages.
Sure.
So do you see like going that mechanical route versus like having more people? Like, because I was in a similar situation in the print shop where I either had to hire like a lot more people or get automated equipment to speed up that process and limit the hires that I needed. Do you see that as maybe a route?
Yeah, probably. I want to. There's a lot of tree services that hire a ton of people, right? And maybe not the highest skill level. They're grunt workers, right?
Yep.
Get the college kids home for the summer.
Correct, and there's nothing wrong with that, but
There's a lot that goes into having a big crew and a lot of people.
correct, and there's a ton of tree work
Risk.
is very dangerous,
Yeah.
and so to have the responsibility for that many people's safety is
Yep.
something to really, really be serious about. So I would like to have a more intimate crew of people that we can all rely on each other. We all
More ride or die style people.
correct,
Yeah.
correct, and have the mechanical side of things to
Pick up the slack.
not wear out our bodies, and
Yep.
and be able to have the efficiency.
Yeah.
in
I mean,
that.
you can go in, if you can go in and do a 5-hour tree job in 1 hour with just some machinery, that's a no-brainer. Obviously
Correct.
it's expensive machinery, but
Yeah.
Yep,
you get that workload. Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
And people want, I think, to set yourself apart in the tree world, because then you're going to get that higher quality. Because, like any of us, we don't want to beat in our bodies, and I think you'd get skilled workers to run that piece of equipment than go climb the tree. Like, I'd much rather do that than climb that tree. So I think that'll help differentiate yourself for the future to offer that. And I think likewise on a consumer side, they would appreciate a piece of equipment like that, especially overhanging houses and,
Yeah.
I'm sure you probably run into some situations where it's a little bit sketchy, maybe not sketchy is maybe not the right word, but there's just
Correct.
some calls that you have to make that are less than ideal, but in a tree's in a really tough spot.
Correct. No, I mean,
that's just the way it goes.
you take out,
Get it.
you rig branches, which is where we
Mhm.
put a pulley way up high in the tree. We run a rope through that, and then down to a branch that we're going to remove. Then that rope goes down to a device called a porter wrap, and that adds friction. So, if you've got a 200-pound guy on the end of the rope and you're letting down a 1,200-pound piece of branch,
Mhm.
he doesn't go up in
Yeah.
the up in the tree.
In the tree.
Yeah, but there's a lot of times where you're like judging. You're like, I think if I cut it here, it should clear the roof.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and so there's a lot of precision that goes into tree work, but there's also a lot of judgment calls where you're like,
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
is this gonna work?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so
There's not a scale up
Yeah.
there measuring that or weighing that branch
Correct.
before you cut her loose.
correct, which is why crane operators hate working with us, because
Sure.
when they're on a construction site, they look at the tag on
Yeah.
whatever they're lifting. Oh yeah, it weighs 2,300 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Boom.
we're within chart. We're doing crane removals for trees. We look at a piece. We've got an app that says, okay, this species of tree
Sure.
log
Density.
weight should be roughly this. Our chart weight is good for 4,000 pounds.
Sure.
I think this piece weighs 3,000 pounds. We're probably going to cut it a little bit shorter to air more towards the 2,000 pound,
Yep.
because once we make that cut, you can't set it
turning
back
back.
down.
Turn them back.
Correct.
No.
The crane will set it down, but
Yeah.
not in the way you want. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's pretty interesting. What other things in the industry do you see that, we've talked a lot about, kind of how you go about doctoring the trees and set that apart. Well, what do you see in the industry that's maybe an easy ticket on it? You've done mailers. What else have you done to kind of set yourself apart and continue to grow your business
Yeah.
as fast as you have?
Mailers, excuse me, mailers have been very successful for us. We work with a company that sends out mailers for us, and we get a huge response off of that.
Sure.
Just we do a lot of old school advertising, the yard signs and door hangers and stuff
Sure.
like that, and that's been very successful for
That's
us.
fair. Sure. Yeah, no, that's awesome.
I think Sawdust Savage signs and Maverick signs are in competition on every corner of
We've gotten a
Waukesha.
little behind
Yeah.
Cole, but we're coming for you.
Yeah. Well, that's good. No, I think
Love to
that's
see
that's
it.
huge that's huge in the branding thing. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have a logo, I mean that stands out.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, how did you come up with that logo? Where'd that come from?
Yeah, we worked with this awesome company, Insignia, I think was the name of it.
Never heard of them.
Oh yeah. Anyways, so when I first started, I was like, I need a logo, right?
Yeah.
And some guy messaged me on Facebook, and he's like, "Oh, I make your logo for
$5."
$500." Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we got this logo. It wasn't even like a vector file or
Right.
anything. It was just garbage. And so we rocked that for like 2 months, and I was really disappointed with it. And so
Sure.
I reached out to you guys
Yep.
and
Yep.
said, "Hey, this is what we're thinking. Sawdust Savage is our name.
Yep.
I'm a big Norwegian guy. How
Yep.
about
Sure.
a Viking?" And
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I can't tell you how many compliments we put on our
That's
logo.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
that's where you got it, though, like Norwegian Viking style. That's
Yeah.
I mean, I've never
Yep.
asked you how you got Sawdust Savage. Just
Yeah.
a very different name for sure, but definitely
Correct.
stands out.
We wanted a name that wasn't just like Leif's Tree Service,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because there's, granted, there's not a lot of Leif's Tree Services, but
Yeah,
there's
Just to
that's what people
Terminology.
do. They take their name and then put Tree Service.
put a
behind
service
it.
behind it.
Yeah, and
Yep.
and I didn't want that. I didn't want it to be just about me. I wanted it to
Be a
to be
brand.
a brand, yeah. And
Yep.
so, I was just
that's
stewing
awesome.
on names, and
Oh, that's
I was
awesome.
like, Sawdust Savage.
Yeah,
That's got a ring
Yeah.
to
No,
it.
I think it's great. Like I said, I mean, it sticks with you. You see
Yeah.
the logo, you see the signs. It's orange.
Yep.
You don't see a lot of orange, right?
Yep.
They're usually green. 'Cause it's,
Correct.
arbor, it's green, right? But
Yeah.
orange, I think it really stands out, and that branding, I think, will continue to propel you for years to come because
Yeah.
it sticks.
Yeah.
No different than roofs. I would have to imagine in a tree service game, there's a lot of people that get their tree cut down and they don't even remember who cut their tree down because
Correct.
just another company, right?
Correct.
And the goal is long term. We're all young sitting at this table, and we're probably going to be in business for a number of years. And having that, there's more trees in their yard, and they're probably going to have more issues. So making sure that they're calling you back to do it, not hitting Google and everything, is obviously
Correct.
the
What was the
best.
name of
So-
that tree? Yeah,
Yeah.
tree
Yeah,
guy,
exactly. Who's the name of that tree guy? Who cut it down? No, you want to
Yep.
make an experience out of it. You want to remember your logo and your brand because they will,
Yep.
if you
Yep.
make it loud enough and set yourself apart.
And that's
in
something
that.
that we've been striving for is repeat business because
Yep.
you can cut a tree down once, but
Yep.
you're kind of done after that, right?
Yeah,
Grind the
exactly.
stump, yeah, it's all over. But in the tree world, there's so many repeat services that you can provide. There's a lot of tree healthcare.
Mhm.
And so we're working on moving more into that direction. We do a lot of pruning, a lot of cabling and bracing, those kind of things that
Yep.
help preserve trees. Because if we got somebody that has a tree that they love and they want to preserve it, we're gonna be able to provide high level of service to them
Yep.
over and over again versus just a one-time
Yep.
cut and leave kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I think that's hugely important. Honestly, you should get like a tree club or something like that. Honestly, like where you come and you like maintain
yeah.
your trees. I mean, you taught me a lot about the trees I have in my front yard. I
Yeah.
never would have done anything with them.
Yeah.
Let the things grow. Someone plants a tree, you think you check that box and you let them grow. You could get
Yeah.
a recurring customer like, hey,
Yeah.
I want these trees to be good, and I want them to I want you to take care of them every single year. So just
Yep.
come and do whatever that it is
Yep.
that you need to do, and you come and prune them up and take care of them. I think there's a huge differentiator for that industry. That kind of you're getting the customers that you want, higher level customers that want to take care of their trees and want everything to look nice and presentable, and definitely would be a different service.
Yeah.
So.
I was actually watching a video the other day. The guy was he runs a plumbing company, and he was
Yep.
talking about they've got a subscription service for their
Jared Williams.
Yeah,
Jared Williams, yeah.
that's who it was.
Yep.
And I was like, that's a great idea.
I mean, roofing, we copied it in the roofing industry, right? We
Yep.
have the Maverick Roofing Club. Well, what is it?
Yep.
Well, you clean your gutters. That nobody ever does. You go up in your roof and you seal everything up. Again, it gives you that little bit of peace of mind for the year that you've like completed what you need to complete. And that's exactly from the HVAC. Do you clean
Yep.
your AC units? Do you people do that all the time, or have just a general service so that they know that their furnace is going to run when it's -20 out?
Yep.
I think that'd be a different avenue. Look at that.
Yeah.
New
Look at
little
that.
idea for you.
Yep.
Little added bonus.
Yep. I think that goes alongside with a lot of our core values too. We've talked about it in the past on the podcast of difference between relationship sales and business and transactional. So a lot of people get stuck in that transactional side of things, but being in that relationship side of things where you truly do care about the customer, that's going to set you apart for years to come. And that's going to be a business that's worth sticking around. And, they're going to be calling you back because they have that relationship with you for years to come. So, definitely like seeing that, especially in a newer business like you have here. So you're setting yourself up for a lot of years of success doing it that way.
Well, thanks. We're trying to do it right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, you're on the
That's
right
awesome.
track. So.
Oh, absolutely. So.
But we are wrapping up to the end of the episode here. Like to give you a second if you got anything that you'd like to say, whether it's like a quote you live by or something that gets you up in the morning. Any words of wisdom?
Put me on the spot here.
Yep,
Jeez.
we'll cut to the part where you're telling that. So
Yeah.
yeah, but you can take a second to think if you got.
Yeah.
What gets you out of bed in the morning? You got to
Yeah.
do something that moves you that says when the
What's-
day is
yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the two biggest things for me are my family and my faith. The being able to provide for my family, everybody wants to make a better life for their kids and their spouse, and so that aspect of it, and then also my faith in Jesus, just trying to live my life in a way and do every aspect of it that honors him, and those are the two biggest things I think that motivate me to do what I do every day and to do it to the best of my ability.
No, I think that's great. There's no bigger why than family and faith right there.
It's a good sense of purpose for sure.
Correct.
And then lastly, how do people find you if they need some tree care or a tree cut down? What would be the way they get a hold of you?
You got to drive out to my place. My address is fine. No, I'm just kidding. You can look us up on Sawdust Savage Arbor Company, arborco.com. We're on Facebook. Yeah, that's probably or my phone number, 507-298-5263. Those are the best ways to get a hold of us.
Perfect. Well, we appreciate you, Leif, coming out here, telling your story. giving us some insight on the tree world, which I definitely didn't know much about. So it's definitely cool to see an expert in the field, talk about the craft and something they have so much passion about. So yeah, that's episode 21 with Leif with Sawdust Savage. And remember, today's a good day for a good day.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.